Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thanks to our last segment, all sorts of action into the Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Is it just me coming up in a couple of segments from now? You can text us to 604-294-94. All of our guests today, it's our all GM show. We had Ryan Johnson on. Ken Holland's going to join us in the next segment. Craig Button right now. All of our guests today are sponsored by Parker Marine. Make your boating experience the best it can be. For more info, visit parkermarine.ca. Former GM of the Dallas Stars and Calgary Flames, now TSN Scouting Director, Craig Button, joining us. Welcome back, Craig.
Glad to be back with you, Donnie and Rick. It's always a pleasure to join you on a weekly basis, and glad you're talking to Kenny Holland. I watched the Calgary Flames Edmonton Oilers rookie game last night in Calgary, and it's amazing to watch the attention that the young players get, and not so much about are they going to come in and help the team win, but where are they at in terms of their development, and a real keen eye on the players from both management sides last night.
Anybody stick out for you, Craig, as I put you on the spot?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you who I thought both goaltenders were outstanding. Dustin Wolf for the Calgary Flames, and then Konovalov, who was a third-round pick by the Edmonton Oilers a couple of years ago. And I really liked him. I didn't see him live last year. I saw some tape games, and he didn't have what you would call a very solid season. But watching him last night, what I had seen going into when he did get drafted, it, to me, really showed that ability to technically, athletically, reading the game really well, that would lead a team to draft him in the third round. He looked really, really good. So you look at the advancement of Stuart Skinner last year in the American Hockey League, who's really advanced. Now I watch Konovalov, and an area of their prospect pool that might not have been very deep was in the goaltending position. I think it's looking a lot more solid and stronger at this point in time.
Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. Pettersson has gone to Michigan to work out with Quinn Hughes. Looks like they're going to miss training camp, the 3-day camp that the Canucks hold and most NHL teams hold, all NHL teams. How big of a deal is that now versus the old days when you used to be ensconced in a place for a week and a half, 2 weeks, Craig?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's just all part of the negotiating, right? Like get the players away from the marketplace. And the team doesn't want the players, like unsigned players, in this type of a negotiation around either, because the other players are going to get asked lots, can you talk? It becomes, okay, here's where we're at. Yeah, I want to play for the Canucks. Yeah, I love the Canucks. Yeah, I'll leave it to my agent. It just becomes tired. Remove the players. It works better for the team and for the players to be separated at this point in time, and leave it to the management and the agent to try to hammer out a deal. So I don't see it as a big deal. The players are so well conditioned, and they're ready to step in and play. And we're looking at an 82-game schedule. So what I would say on September 21st is that no need to worry at this point in time.
Hey, Craig, here in Vancouver, a player that hasn't played a game for the Canucks, who already has a target on his back, is Tucker Pullman. Because of the deal he signed, because there doesn't seem to be enough money for Pettersson and Hughes. What can you tell us? You are the TSN Scouting Director, about defenseman Tucker Pullman.
Well, what I'll tell you is he's a real territorial defensive defenseman. He's smart in his position. He knows where to be. He makes it really challenging for opponents to gain space and to gain opportunities. He's a bottom pair defenseman. Can he scale up and play in your second pair? Yeah, he can. But I don't think like over the long term, if your blue line is built to be to help your team be ultimately successful, that Tucker can be scaled up that high in the lineup. But he's a good, smart, competitive player, and he gives you everything he's got. But that comes from the area of a bottom pair defenseman. When I look at Travis Hamonic and I look at where Tucker Pullman fits in, you have Tyler Myers, right? To me, you're looking at two bottom pair defensemen. And so if you don't have players in front of them, they get scaled up. And when players that are, in my view, slotted into a certain area get scaled up, that's going to ultimately create problems for your team.
Yeah, Craig, our first time talking to you in a long time. What about the changes to the Canucks roster? Poolman, Dickinson, Garland, OEL. When you look at this team on paper, do you see the improvement that a lot of people are seeing?
Yeah, and I think you have to include Podkolzin in there. And I think you also have to include second-year Nils Höglander. Yeah. I don't think there's any question that the Vancouver Canucks have a lot of skill up front. I think that's obvious. They've added more skill with Connor Garland. But with the way Nils Höglander plays, the way Vasily Podkolzin plays, I think you can see similar things from Podkolzin this year that you saw last year from Höglander. Then you add in Jason Dickinson, who I think is a real good third-line center. So I think they've strengthened their team up front. They've gotten deeper. They got more speed. They got more weight. They got better players, deeper into their lineup. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I'm an OEL fan. He doesn't have to be the number one defenseman. You got Quinn Hughes. He's a number one defenseman. So where does OEL fit in? Can he take some of the pressure off of other defensemen? Can he be better playing in a little bit less of a demanding role because Quinn is so good? I also think it sets them up, in offensive situations, power play specifically, with Quinn and the shot that Oliver Ekman-Larsson has, his ability to score goals, can also help them on the power play. Will they use two defensemen? I don't know, but it gives them a different look, even if they split up Hughes and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And if they do put them together, it creates an entirely different look as well. So, I think their team on paper is better, but my concerns still lay with the blue line. I see a blue line that has, a number of 5 and 6 defensemen and not enough in the top 4. And if you're thin in the top 4, you're going to get exposed.
I want to put your GM hat on, and so many young kids, Craig, Pettersson, Hughes, Kachuk's not signed, Rasmus Dahlin, Kaprizov's not signed. When you look at these young kids going from $1 million base out of entry level into 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million, what are your thoughts, Craig, with these kids making tons of money after their entry level deals now?
Okay, well, I think that the young players are driving teams. So, the bottom line is you come in under the entry-level contract and then you perform. So I just did a little bit of work anticipating Elias Pettersson, obviously coming out of entry-level. So Sebastian Aho, Matt Barzal, and Mitch Marner all signed different contracts coming out of their entry-level. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of Aho signed that, I think it's $8.6 million five-year contract, which only afforded Carolina, in this case, 1 year of unrestricted free agency. Coming out of entry level, he was .326 goals a game and just under 0.8 points per game. Barzal, he signed that 3-year bridge deal, 4, 7, and 10, an average of 7, but he gets qualified at $10 million coming out, not after this year, but the following year. He's at .254 goals a game and .89 points a game. Marner, that big contract, just shy of $11 million, .278 goals a game, .929 points per game. So why do I go there? These players have performed. They've been rewarded. Elias Pettersson, he's played less games. The COVID lockout year and then the injury last year affected him. He's at .39 goals a game and at .927 points a game. So you're Elias Pettersson and you're starting to go, wait a second here. I have performed pretty darn close. I haven't played as many games because of injury, but can he make a case to ask for what Marner got? He can. But can he sit back and say, hey, give me what Barzal got, a bridge deal on 3 years, and then you're 1 year removed, you get qualified at $10 million, you can walk right to free agency. But that's where we find ourselves, guys, because, there's precedent with contracts handed out on players coming out of entry level that have performed. And there's no way anybody can suggest that Elias Pettersson hasn't performed.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
We could go on and on with you today, Craig. One other thing. Zdeno, very, very quickly, Zdeno Chara signs a 1-year deal. He's back with the Islanders. I remember my moment here. Do you remember the first time you saw him at 6'9" on the ice?
Well, I saw him at when he was before, like in his draft year. Mm-hmm. And, he ended up being a 3rd-round draft pick, I believe, to the Islanders. And, he was a long, gangly player. And, I mean, it was you watched and you kind of said, okay, he's got to grow in. And, he wasn't – he was uncoordinated. He was clumsy to a certain extent. And, you sit back and you evaluate and you make your decision. But, he ends up being a 3rd-round draft pick. But I also remember the first time I saw him in the Western Hockey League. And it was in the old Kelowna Arena against the Rockets. Mm-hmm. And he was up in Prince George, and he got into a fight. And he didn't do so well in the fight. And, the Kelowna Rockets fans were all on Zdeno Chara. And he wasn't comfortable. You could see he wasn't comfortable. Later on that game, he got into another fight. I tell you what. He silenced the crowd, because you talk about somebody that learned real quick about how to use his size and his reach to advantage. He did. And, as he developed, and he's such an articulate guy. Brad McCrimmon, the late Brad McCrimmon, had him in Long Island. When he was coming through, Brad was involved with the organization at that time. Brad told me, he said, there was 3 things about Zdeno that he said stood out. His overall intelligence on the ice and off the ice, his unbelievable commitment to getting better in whatever way he could. He worked on everything, and he said he was a dyed-in-the-wool competitor. And, we saw that he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's worked out.
It's worked out tremendously well. And, we're not just talking about a great hockey player. We're talking about a great person.
Yeah, and I think in 2011 he won a Stanley Cup too. I'm not sure about that. Craig?
Yeah. So who was the other European captain, Stanley Cup winner?
You got me.
Nick Lidstrom.
Nick Lidstrom.
Lidstrom. There you go.
Only 2 of them.
Yeah.
Nick Lidstrom and Zdeno Chara.
Thanks for this, Craig. Thanks for the trivia as well. Good to have you back.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.